Weeks of sleep deprivation, confinement to small boxes, the simulated drowning technique, waterboarding are three of many enhanced interrogation methods revealed in the report, which also found the CIA inflicted more torture techniques on prisoners than it had reported to Congress or the public. Here with more on the Senate Intelligence Committee report are my guest, Margaret Dooley-Samueli with the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties, and Los Angeles Times reporter Tony Perry. Welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you.
Now, Margaret, for years, organizations have claimed that the CIA techniques were more aggressive than they were reporting and, in fact, were actually torture. What are your concerns when you have seen this report now? What are some of the major issues you're concerned about?
This report exposes a CIA run amok and a torture program that has violated domestic and international law, shattered lives, and harmed America's reputation around the country. It is as bad or worse than we had believed. The ACLU has requested thousands of documents, but this is still startling.
So it was startling to you. Now, backers of the enhanced interrogation program, as they call it, say that these techniques were necessary to identify important threats at the time to the U.S. What is your response to that argument?
These techniques are immoral, unacceptable, and according to the report itself, ineffective.
Okay, and Tony, you were embedded with the Marines back on tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. At that time, there was a different level of fear. What did you hear about the treatment of these detainees?
One thing I did hear was that it had been authorized from the highest levels that when you take a detainee, while you have to treat him with certain regard to the Geneva Convention, you can keep him in that first disorientation that all prisoners experience, that's the best way to get information, keep them disoriented and keep them worried about what's going to happen down the road. Now, these things that we're now learning about, the waterboarding, rectal feeding, rectal hydration, those I never heard of anything like that in the field. Those were more techniques we now know the CIA and contractors were using in foreign sites with suspected terrorists or terrorist hangers-on, not people in the field where you're taking prisoners and such. But there was a tendency to want to do what could be done as we move towards Baghdad, for example, in '03, to find out what information we could, who might be lurking out there, and were they going to hit us with chemical weapons, for example.
Something else that came out in this report is that this interrogation was done by contractors. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I'm not at all surprised by that. Both of these wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, have seen massive use of contractors. Blackwater is probably the best example, and we know that they've been involved in some things that have led to lawsuits and criminal action. That's how we go to war these days. We don't have unlimited manpower. We don't have a draft, and so we contract. A lot of them are former military, and they're more than willing to provide security. Now we know interrogation. Don't forget the CIA itself, its Inspector General, blew the whistle on a lot of this stuff and said that this had gone way beyond what was authorized.
And Margaret, post 9/11, the Bush administration said many times that the U.S. was not torturing detainees. When does interrogation techniques turn to torture?
The techniques described in the report released today and that Tony just mentioned, they go beyond what the Bush administration authorized. They go beyond what the CIA had admitted to doing. And the CIA has repeatedly, and for 2 years, tried to keep this report from being released. So the CIA has gone beyond even this gray area of what the discussion was about. These actions, these techniques are torture.
Well, Tony, U.S. embassies and military installations are on high alert with the release of this report, and there are thousands of Marines still stationed overseas. There are Marines that are based here. What does high alert mean in a nutshell for military personnel?
It means keep your boots very close. You may be hopping on a helo to go to a trouble spot. You're right. There are 2,000 Marines from Camp Pendleton, Miramar, 29 Palms. They're what is called a crisis response unit. They went over there about a month to 6 weeks ago. They're in Kuwait. Some of them are in Iraq. Others, I think, are on ships, or Bahrain, other Persian Gulf nations. They're ready in case something bad goes down, as it did at Benghazi.
Are there safety concerns specifically to San Diego, either against military who are based here or the borders or things like that?
Well, we have more military here than any place in the country, and if one is of an evil twist of mind and you want to strike at the United States military domestically, we're right on the map.
All right, and Margaret, I'll have to wrap with this. And do we know if these techniques are still being used, and what kind of accountability do we have now as far as either military or contracted people interrogating?
So when President Obama took office, he halted this activity, but the CIA and the senior officials that designed this program have not been held accountable. You've even had CIA agents destroying videotape. They were not held criminally liable. This report offers an opportunity for the United States and for this administration to not use this report to put it to bed, but rather to use this as an opportunity to hold people accountable and for a full accounting.
All right, well, we have to leave it there. There's a lot more on our website, kpbs.org. Margaret and Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.